Like that's like sorry, sorry, dude. Like yeah, my bad. Like I mean, not my bad, but like you got. Like I'm glad he survived. She clearly knows what she's doing. She's invested in the drugs. She's invested in something else as well. And to all the men out there, be smarter. Don't just black out because you see breasts. You know what I'm saying? Like you gotta look, raise your chin up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like just like be careful.
I hate to laugh at this stuff. I'm sure it happens to a certain degree. Just watch your back. You never know. Yeah, this thing, we fellas, generally, this is a very big generalization. We kind of float through life without too many fears of people doing things to us.
Yeah.
Because look, in general, and in I think stats would show, men generally tend to be the assaulters and the druggers and to random strangers. They happen to be women, but when the tables are turned, man, it really gets scary. We go, wait, I've never had to experience this feeling of having to watch my back from women? Oh my God. Now we know this, but definitely know it when things like this happen for sure. I'm not sure how soon he's gonna get back on that horse and find himself at the Dirty Rabbit again. But I do hope they do get this criminal. People should be ripping folks off, even though we did have a chuckle at our friend. The poll shows, what would that say?
TikTok man fake.
That it's fake? The repo man is fake, apparently, to you guys. I need some proof. Because listen, this is a show about standards. Francesca, thank you for joining me on a Friday episode. I'm glad you were here. Wasn't it a little more fun than usual?
It was, actually. Nobody died. Nobody died.
I was just about
that was nice.
No one died.
I like the part where everyone lived. Thank you, JR.
Thanks for being here. Habituation Room, of course, and also check Francesca out on all of the TYT shows. Thank you again. Up next, we have the Young Turks and their power panel. You guys go check them out and have a fabulous weekend afterwards. We're gonna see you on the best damn day of the week, Monday.
Stop with the questions. Celebrate. Woo!
Thank God it's Friday.
it like it's Biden's so-called agenda. All right, Power Panel, Jay Heger, John Iadarola, Max Burns. John is, of course, the host of Damage Reports, which you should check out 1 p.m. Eastern every day, Monday through Friday. Max Burns is not only a contributor at Rebel Headquarters, he's also a Democratic strategist and the founder of Third Degree Strategies. Max, welcome back, and at least I can see your shirt. I mean, it is.
I like it. Pop of color, I like it.
I'm in that Friday mood. What can I say? It's great to be back with you.
All right, good to have you and your shirt. So
I have a shirt too. In fact, you could get this shirt at Shop TYT. No big deal.
Yes, in fact, I've gotten about 12 of them. So shoptyt.com for that, for sure. All right, guys, lots of stories. The Pete Buttigieg one is amazing, amazing. Corporate media is hilarious, okay?
I have mixed feelings about that one.
Interesting, I do not have mixed feelings. And then of course, Biden's pathetic weakness throughout the show, and Republicans being bad guys. So it's a normal news day, but we're gonna have fun with it, John.
We will, although perhaps not with this first story. A police officer in Washington, D.C. had apparently been communicating for multiple years with the then head of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio. And when he found out that the head of the Proud Boys was going to be arrested, he leaked the information to him and then lied to investigators about that. Probably in for a penny, in for a pound. At that point, why not lie, I suppose. This is Shane Lamond we're talking about, a 24-year veteran of the DC police, and then the department's head of intelligence. A lot of leaking going on in the intelligence lately. Indicted on 1 count of obstruction of justice and 3 counts of making false statements. Will be arraigned later on today in US District Court in Washington. You can see there his official documents. In any event, he had apparently begun communicating with Tarrio in July 2019 and continued on until January of 2021. That seems like an important month for some reason. I don't remember exactly why, but anyway, according to the indictment, they were in regular contact regarding the Proud Boys' planned actions, which included attending a Trump rally in DC. So we have worried since the events of January 6th about potential behind the scenes dealings or communications between law enforcement and those who had done the rioting. There had been a lot of actions that were taken on that day by law enforcement that seemed at least suspicious. This might not be linked to literally any of that, but it is worrisome at the very least. And here's an idea of how strong their relationship actually was. Between July 2019 and January 2021, they communicated at least 500 times using cloud-based messaging services like Google Voice, Apple iMessages, and Telegram. By the way, Telegram is encrypted and also has the ability to destroy messages automatically. And it appears like more than 100 of those messages were destroyed. In any event, back on December 18th of 2020, Lamond revealed information about the investigation into the burning of a Black Lives Matter flag after a rally in DC. And on January 4th, as Tarrio was on a flight from Miami to Washington Reagan National Airport, Lamond sent Tarrio notice that a warrant had been signed. Now, Tarrio eventually pleaded guilty to destruction of property and attempted possession of a high-capacity ammunition magazine when he returned to Washington. And as a result, he wasn't actually there with the Proud Boys on January 6th. So we have more details, and obviously we'll have to talk about this, but it's one of the big fears that we have raised over the last few years that gets poo-pooed by members of the right-wing media, by Republican politicians. The idea that there could be people in the police force, in the armed forces, that don't necessarily have the interests of like democracy or the people foremost in their minds.
Yes, there's 2 parts of this story in my mind, and I think the most interesting part is the things that this guy caused and then the reaction of his police department afterwards. So, all right, so he tipped off Tarrio to not only that he was going to be arrested, which already is enormous, and you're gonna see it as reverberating consequences, but he tipped him off to evidence that the cops had on Tarrio. Not only that, he told him to delete the evidence. I mean, it doesn't get any worse than that, right? And he's the head of intelligence for the DC police. So he's getting the intelligence and then giving it to this right-wing group who's planning an insurrection against the government. And he's giving them hints on how not to get arrested, right? And then he's saying, oh, the other cops are asking me about you guys, so make sure you're getting rid of the evidence, etc. I mean, it's as bad as it can get, right? Except for the fact that when he told him he's gonna get arrested, he then went and told the rest of the Proud Boys, Tario did. And then the Proud Boys start writing in their messages, then F the blue, okay? And so when they go to on January 6th, and this is because he got the warning just a couple of days before January 6th, because he was gonna get arrested right before January 6th for that flag situation that John told you about, right? So then the Proud Boys get all riled up against the cops because of this cop who was head of intelligence in the DC Police Bureau. He basically betrayed his own. He betrayed everyone. He betrayed the government. Because of that, he was put on leave February of 22. I looked into it, paid leave. And he's been on paid leave till today. When he still didn't get fired, he got an indefinite suspension. That guy who might have even gotten other cops killed was on paid leave for like a year and a half, paid leave. As a cop, apparently, there's nothing you can do that'll get you fired. Nothing, including handing all of the evidence over to the criminals. Unbelievable. Except, unfortunately, in America, very believable. Meanwhile, every day in America and every day this week, I see right-wingers crying all over social media. Oh, the government is picking on us. We're the victims. Are you insane? The government has been helping the right wing for my entire lifetime. It is a preposterous proposition that the big government tough guys are out to get conservatives. You don't know any history. You don't know 1% history if you make outrageous claims like this. Guys like this are far more the norm than the exception. Max.
That's absolutely right. I mean, there is a reason that every single Republican member of the House voted to oppose an effort for a federal probe into white supremacy and neo-Nazism in police departments and the military. It's because they knew what we were going to find. It's not a secret. The Department of Homeland Security says it's a threat. The FBI says it's a threat. And we see every day, seemingly, stories of police officers, members of the military, who are exposed as white nationalists, as senior officials in neo-Nazi groups. And the only people standing in the way of holding them accountable are the Republicans who need their votes.
Yeah. By the way, the people of DC paid this guy's salary. So the people that he endangered, by the way, very largely African-American population, has to pay that guy, had to pay that guy, full well knowing he's a traitor and helped criminals and helped attack our government. No, because a cop, nope, always have to pay a cop. Cops are the most sacrosanct thing in the whole wide world. And now the right wing has this lunatic conspiracy theory that cops, the FBI, law enforcement are all left wingers. Since when? But yet that maniacal theory is believed by almost 100% of the right wing now.
Yeah. Let me give you some more of the background details. We've hinted at a little bit of this, but he said at one point, we don't have access to the vast majority of those many messages that were sent over a couple of years between Lamond and Tario. But he said at one point, this is on January 8th, so the immediate aftermath of January 6th, the country's still reeling. And he says this, of course, I can't say it officially, but personally, I support you all and don't want to see your group's name or reputation dragged through the mud. Yeah, it would be bad if that happened. But again, if anyone was dragging their name through the mud, I feel like their members should deserve some acknowledgement for their efforts in that area. We're 2 days out from this riot. People have died already, and his concern is that some of the people who might have been in the area could potentially get in trouble. That's his concern. His concern wasn't that dozens and dozens of cops were in the hospital, or at least that's not what he was saying to them. Like, I really hope that you guys had nothing to do with the actual violence because I've been communicating with you for years and that would be a massive betrayal. If there were messages like that, we haven't seen them yet. Perhaps they're forthcoming, but in any event, he says, because there has to be a defense now, of course, this is back in February. His attorney said that his client did nothing to aid the rioters. And look, so far we haven't seen anything that's specifically about helping out people who were rioting on January 6th, or at least I haven't seen anything like that. So that seems fair, but was, quote, only communicating with these individuals because the mission required it. He added that Lamond was instrumental to Tarrio's arrest and that there is no legitimate law enforcement officer who is familiar with the facts of this case who would opine otherwise. Obviously, a lot of people don't agree with that. Michael Fanone, by the way, notably, having that horrific experience on January 6th, says this wasn't just ineptitude and poor decision making. There was a level of betrayal. Yeah. Look, again, there seems to be nothing directly linking him to assisting in the rioting that was going on January 6th, but to say that he was only communicating because the mission required it, which part of the mission was it that required you to message him saying, by God, I hope you guys get through this without getting in trouble? Is that part of the job? It seems like support. It seems like some sort of ideological overlap there, and instrumental to the arrest. You tipped him off to it. He was still arrested anyway, I suppose that's true. But attempted ruining an arrest is not instrumental to it. You just were inept at what you were doing.
Yeah, here, look, let me give you a paragraph here from Huffington Post to give you a sense of how much he helped Tarrio. According to the indictment, Lamond kept Tarrio abreast about whether law enforcement had video or images of him during the destruction of the banner. So that's the thing he was arrested on originally. It also alleges that as Tarrio traveled to Washington on January 4th, 2021, that's 2 days before the riot, obviously, Lamond warned Tarrio that a judge had signed an arrest warrant for him, but didn't tell his colleagues inside MPD that Tarrio knew about the warrant. He was arrested without incident as he entered the city that day. He tells the guy, hey, other cops are coming to get you. That could put the cops' lives in danger. They're lucky that it didn't, right? And then Tarrio tells all of his co-conspirators that are going there 2 days later, January 6th, like I said, the cops are coming to arrest me. They get super riled up and decide to attack the cops. To me, that is aiding and abetting what happened on January 6th. And it is obviously aiding and abetting Tarrio as he leaks evidence against him, the arrest warrant against him, etc. So no, this guy, I don't think this case is close at all. At all. I know with a cop, you have to prove it beyond 400% reason, right? And there can't be any doubt at all in the beloved frickin' cops. But no, he's constantly feeding him evidence behind the scenes to help him because he's a right-wing fascist wannabe. I don't know what his political leanings are in terms of whether he's literally a fascist or not, but he's helping this quasi-fascist organization in every imaginable way behind the backs of his fellow officers and getting them endangering their lives for his far-right propaganda. By the way, hey, right-wingers who think the FBI and law enforcement is so liberal these days, can you name one cop we have ever caught leaking information to the left wing or to Black Lives Matter? One, never, I've never heard of a single case of it. Never. Like, oh guys, left wingers, let me help you out. I'm with the government and I'm with the cops and I'm with law enforcement. Left wingers, I'll leak you information, make sure you're okay. 0 cases in American history. You right wingers who think that the government is against you and the cops are against you and the FBI is against you when they help you in every imaginable way, please get a sanity check. All right.
Really fast, to your point also, we could do a hypothetical for this. I am willing to bet, and feel free to send in messages. We're gonna be responding to some in the break. Check Fox right now and see if they're talking about this. I have a feeling they're probably not. If he had been communicating with Antifa, do you think they would find time to cover it?
It's a great question.
I mean, come on.
And by the way, right wingers, please, learn 1% of American history. How many right wingers were executed by the FBI and CIA? Zero. How many left wingers were executed? Dozens and dozens. The FBI is left wing. On which planet? Please, go buy a clue while you're busy. I hope I don't interrupt your insurrection and treason plans while you're looking up 1% of American history.
We should probably take our first break, but when we come back, we do have a lot to talk about, including there had seemed to be some progress on raising the debt ceiling earlier today. Well, apparently they've hit a brick wall. We'll give you the details after this.
Back on TYT. Gabby Marita writes in, I want this trio to spend an entire episode of Old School discussing Star Trek and then debating what the world's best sandwich is and why it's a tuna melt. Okay.
It is definitely not a tuna melt.
I like tuna melts. Okay, don't get us started. Okay, but that's not a bad idea. And we could look into that for another Old School episode. Members get all the Old School episodes. That's one of the benefits of membership, of course. Wang John writes in, cops working with white supremacists. Sir, I for one am shocked. Shocked, I tell you. Okay, agreed, we all are. Repcat, the political cat boy, says, I like when Max comes on, and not just because he's cute. Wow.
Not just.
Okay. He's got great points and knows what he's talking about. We agree on that front. Dragon with a girl tattoo. Max also agrees. Dragon with a girl tattoo writes, it sounds like this guy wanted to be Trump's FBI director pick. Hold.
Maybe?
No, but like no joke, because Trump is not going to put any establishment people in his cabinet if he gets reelected. He did that the first time around. He mainly stacked it with all establishment guys and a couple of populists around him, right? Or the right-wing radicals, etc., right? Next time around, he's not gonna bother doing any of that, right? He's gonna pardon all these guys, so this guy will probably get a pardon if Trump wins. And then he wants a loyalist who will do whatever he wants. It's not out of the question that whether it's this guy or someone just like him, he will pick an absolute right-wing radical lunatic to be the head of the FBI, guaranteed. Like, is there anybody in the establishment? I bet you there are. I bet you 90% of them think, oh no, he wouldn't do that. No, that's a bridge too far. All right. Anyway, MA's 54321 says, FBI spies on peaceful Black Lives Matters and police officers are leaking info to white supremacists. Clearly, the authorities in this country favor one group of people over another. It's not close, not close.
Yep.
On Twitch, Dragon Mage Queen gifted 2 subs, we appreciate it. Gatoman196 says, my sister's a retired cop in California. Lots of racist right-wing cops for sure. So take that for her experience. The Chicken Fried Dragon says, that's funny already. Pre-ordered Justice is Coming and recently ordered a signed copy for my dad. Can't wait to read it. And hi, John. So both John and I, thank you. We appreciate it. And you guys can do likewise at tyt.com/justice. You can pre-order the book there. And then AC says paid leave is crazy, like getting rewarded for misdeeds. Yes, unfortunately, that's very true, referring to the police officer. And then Drake Archon, YouTube membership with an excellent point. Max's shirt is woke AF. That shirt is so woke, it wakes other people up. Okay, we'll be back. Back on TYT, Cenk, John, Max, Xanadu, Dragon, Speedy, Steve, and Hannah Lean. They all just joined. We appreciate it. YouTube.com, sorry, TYT.com/join, or hit the join button below as they did if you're watching on YouTube. We really appreciate it. We can't do it without the members, and the members make us stronger. And so that's awesome. Thank you, Jen. Let's do it.
You're welcome. And here's the news.
Right.
We're not going to accept anything other than what we put. I would suggest that McCarthy not meet until he put something in writing. His words have no meaning. Put it in writing, and if it's anything less, we're not going to accept it.
You don't think he's going to make any changes in a compromise with the White House?
We have a winning hand.
We saw there were members of the House Freedom Caucus, Ralph Norman, Bill Good, saying these negotiations with Biden, you can't trust him. Like, what's the point? Why are we doing this? We've got a winning hand. They are obviously feeling like they're in a very strong position, or at least that it is advantageous for them to project that they feel that they're in a very strong position right now. The caucus as a whole, by the way, put out sort of a warning saying no more discussion on watering it down, all of these negotiations, the bill, the compromises, period. And so we are at a bit of an impasse because on the Senate side, on the Democratic side, Chuck Schumer says that the House bill is dead on arrival. That's the one, of course, that would raise the debt ceiling, but would also cut spending by $4.8 trillion. And we came into this morning with both Biden and Kevin McCarthy saying that the conversation is still ongoing. They see sort of a structure, a path ahead. But as of when we're about to begin the show today, Republican negotiators apparently walked out of the room where negotiations were happening and blamed the White House for holding up discussions. We don't know a lot yet about what happened in that room, but we do have a couple of statements from Representative Garrett Graves. He says, until people are willing to have reasonable conversations about how you can actually move forward and do the right thing, then we're not gonna sit here and talk to ourselves. We decided to press pause because it's just not productive. Bear in mind, look, we've done a lot of coverage about what it is that they're asking for, and we will continue to update that because they keep adding new things to it. In fact, we have a little bit coming up later on in the show. But they are not only just freezing government spending, they're dialing it back to the previous year's spending, significant cuts across the board. And if it seems weird to you that they're so willing to let this entire thing just blow up, well, I mean, they don't want even the limited spending to go through. They want to cut all of these programs to the bone. And so we'll see what ends up happening, perhaps over the weekend, perhaps cruising into next week, but we do seem to have hit a little bit of a rough patch.
Yeah, so it might surprise you to find out that I agree with both of the Republican congressmen in part. So the first guy said, put it in writing, otherwise it doesn't mean anything. That is correct. That is actually correct political strategy. Perhaps Representative Jayapal could learn a thing or two from that. When her earlier strategy was do not put anything in writing, just go with the strategy, and this is a literal quote, trust Biden. That was the name of the strategy, and Biden, of course, screwed progressives and gave them none of what they wanted, and not getting it in writing was a disaster. And so here is the Freedom Caucus playing correct politics. We draw the line, and we stick to our position. The other side is super weak, / agrees with us, and we all know it. So you just stay in this position and Biden will give you everything you want. The progressives had the 100% wrong strategy, which is, I don't know, forget our agenda, just whatever you want, Biden. Okay, oh, you and Manchin are gonna give it to us later. Did they? Did they? Was that a good strategy? So I'm not talking about policy. On policy, the Republicans are 100% wrong, but on politics, that is correct. The second guy said, we have a winning hand. Now, why would they have a winning hand? Biden could at any moment say, use the 14th Amendment that very clearly says that he can do this. He can raise the debt limit, okay? So this is a nonsense conversation in the first place. Imagine theater. The Democrats have agreed to this theater because they also want to cut spending. It's super obvious. And on top of that, they're saying, the Republicans are, yeah, we'll crash the American economy. Well, any politician that isn't brain dead would say, go for it, big guy. See how it turns out for you. Remember when Bill Clinton said to Newt Gingrich, go for it, shut the government down, let's see how it turns out for you. And it turned into an absolute disaster for the Republicans. The same thing would happen here, but Biden is a Republican. He is a Republican on these issues. There's no reason in the world to offer any of these cuts, let alone the drastic cuts, except for the fact that he agrees with them. But not one mainstream media reporter in the entire country has written the possibility that Biden, who has offered those same cuts throughout the entirety of his career. He's offered these kind of cuts dozens of times in his career. It has not occurred to a single national reporter that maybe he wants the cuts. And that's why he's, oh golly gee, I have such a weak hand. Do I have to give the Republicans everything again? It's only the 20th time in a row. But hey, listen, you national reporters, shut up and write my propaganda. Which is that, oh, there's nothing I could do. There's nothing I can do. There's a million things you can do. Here's one last one. This is now like eighth on the list, right? He can just say 14th Amendment, I'm done with this conversation. But at a bare minimum, that would lift the debt ceiling and they would go to the courts and the courts would take about a year to decide it. At a bare minimum, and the courts would have to say it's a political decision. But that's so easy, all that is super easy. But the eighth priority could be like, oh, you know what guys? 76% of Americans want tax increases on the rich. 3/4 of the country, including a majority of Republican voters. You see me criticize Republican voters all the time. Here the Republican voters are correct. The majority of them also want tax increases on the rich. Increases. They're not getting $1 of that in this so-called compromise or whatever the hell they're calling this load of crap. Why? Because Biden doesn't want tax increases on the rich, because all of his donors are the rich. But this hasn't occurred to a single national reporter covering politics in America. Not one of them. Oh, come on, man. Look, there's 1,000 stories just in today's news. As I read it, I was like, oh, I forgot. People actually believe this crap. No, it's all propaganda. Mainstream media just does marketing for corporate rule. They're not at all in the news business. It's outrageous that they foist this theater upon you and go along with the charade of the Democrats and the Republicans with their good cop, bad cop strategy. All of this is crap. Max.
I just can't get over those clips you showed. I mean, I think it shows a Republican Party completely disconnected from reality. I mean, we have a winning hand. Are you serious? Kevin McCarthy's debt deal is hanging by a single Republican vote. You've got George Santos, who's about to rent a seat at Rikers. You have one congressman who's saying in public that Kevin McCarthy's word is worthless to him. And a party where the hardliners don't want any talk about raising taxes or cutting loopholes, and some moderate Republicans won't vote for it if they don't. So forget negotiating with Joe Biden. I'll be amazed if Kevin McCarthy can actually get this deal through his own caucus. I mean, it would be fitting though, if the only way we get to actually raising taxes on the rich is the complete collapse of the GOP, essentially forcing Biden to do it with no other option.
He won't, Max,
that's about how hard we'd have to drag him there.
There's no way that Biden will increase taxes on the rich. He won't do it. If the Republicans said, yeah, we're okay with it, go ahead. He'd be like, the postman said I couldn't do it. I found someone, the parliamentarian.
I fell off my bike.
The DoorDash driver said I couldn't do it. I said, golly gee, only 3/4 of Americans want it? I couldn't find a way to do it. They're liars, total and utter liars. And the tough guys in the fourth estate haven't figured out that maybe politicians might be lying to them. Yeah, as Max pointed out, the Republicans in reality have the weakest hand I have ever seen. But not just Biden, everyone in Washington is pretending that they have a super strong hand and that Biden is forced to negotiate with them and give them everything they want.
Let me throw out just a couple of things, and then I want to ask both of you a question before we move on to possibly the best story of the show. I do want to add more of the Republicans are now pushing for some sort of big border crackdown to be a part of this bill, because obviously, how could you pay off your country's debts without doing something about the border? I don't know. That's what they're saying. I know that it doesn't matter. I know that nobody cares about what's true or whatever. And I'm sure at some point we have covered this on TYT, but I just looked up previous raises to the debt ceiling. Did you know Ronald Reagan raised it 18 times? That is crazy. Donald Trump raised it twice and suspended it twice while adding over $7 trillion to the debt. And that is just amazing. By the way, Barack Obama had to raise it 7 times. And I really just wish, I know that they won't. You've sort of sketched out why having this sort of constant crisis is a good thing for both the Republicans and the Democrats. But this is like theoretically bad for Biden right now because the Republicans can hold it hostage. But it's also theoretically bad for whoever, President Carlson next time around, because the Democrats could hold it hostage. In theory, for the proper functioning of government, you'd want to get rid of this. But again, if you don't want government to really function, if you want to be able to set aside several months a year to just debating this sort of thing and using it as an excuse to constantly cut spending, then it's useful to have an inherently broken system. But that said, this new push to get Biden to use the 14th Amendment to make sure that the debt ceiling is raised has received some strong pushback from a completely unbiased party, the Chamber of Commerce. They warned that there would be potentially disastrous economic effects if he were to use the 14th Amendment to avoid the country defaulting on its debts. And that is at least mildly interesting because one would think that a business lobbying group would be least interested in the global economy being destroyed, but here is their argument. It is the Chamber's view that attempting to invoke so-called powers under the 14th Amendment would be as economically calamitous as a default triggered by a failure to lift the debt limit in a timely manner. And by the way, one of the argument that he gives, I think it's maybe worthy of discussion, is that sure, he could use it, he could raise the debt ceiling, but that would at least have some sort of legal challenge to it, which would take time. And what if the SCOTUS says you can't raise it while we're waiting for the adjudication, and thus we pass the X date? Then, okay, theoretically, I guess that could be a problem. It doesn't seem like an unavoidable one, but it's potentially a problem. But to be fair, that is not the case that Neil Bradley is making, the chief policy officer for the Chamber of Commerce. He's not just saying, I don't support it because there isn't time. He also says they don't have the power. So like one of the head guys at one of the head business lobbying groups wants this sword to continue hanging over the neck of American democracy.
So think about why, guys. But John's of course right. Chamber of Commerce represents business interests. If we don't lift the debt ceiling, then the market crashes, the economy crashes. It's the last thing Chamber of Commerce wants. So why are they saying that to take away a tool from Biden making sure that the debt ceiling is lifted? It's because they know with absolute certainty that this is theater. They know with absolute certainty that the Republicans and Democrats are bought because they're the ones who bought them. If they thought there was any chance that they are not going to lift the debt ceiling, they would never be in favor of taking away the 14th Amendment as a tool in this case. Never. They know with more certainty than anyone else that they're never gonna do it. It's just an excuse to cut spending and make sure all of the money goes to business interests. But not a single national media reporter has figured it out, right? Yep. So guys, we live in totally different realities. We don't have to discuss the right-wing reality with all the doctors are wrong, all the scientists are wrong, there was no racism in America. Like you don't have to, we know about their alternate reality, that's well known. But mainstream media and everyone in Washington lives in a completely different reality than the rest of us. Because sometimes I'll say these things on social media and everyone who's under 35 will say, Cenk, that's so obvious. Why would you bother stating that the Democrats and Republicans are engaging in theater? And of course they could lift the debt ceiling at any time, and the Democrats just want to do the same cuts. That's so obvious. Did you just catch on to that? And everybody in Washington would be like, oh, you think the Democrats also want to do the cuts? No, that sounds crazy. They haven't even thought of it. They haven't, again, not one article on it. That's amazing, isn't it amazing? At a bare minimum, no matter who's right or wrong, it's amazing that we live in three completely different realities, all in the same country.
Yeah. It's almost enough to make you think that the people who own the media companies also want the cuts to happen.
No, really? Are they? Why, John? Are they multi-billion-dollar corporations?
I'm gonna look into
who also would gain billions of dollars from these tax cuts? Huh? And they want to protect those by making sure that we get the money instead from payments that would go to the average American, an average American that they couldn't give a rat's ass about. And instead they want to protect their interests? Sounds like a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
I once had a reporter tell me, are you saying that these multi-billion-dollar media corporations are interested in profit? Yeah, I am saying that.
It's the playing pretend that really does make your nose bleed. I mean, there are solutions for this debt ceiling problem, and Democrats don't want to use one, the 14th Amendment, and Republicans on the Supreme Court are getting ready to take away another one. When they overrule Chevron, you won't be able to give this to a nonpartisan person or put it with the Federal Reserve to deal with it. They want this tool to stay there so they can keep this drama going. It works for the people in power, even if it doesn't work for us. And that's what no one wants to say out loud.
Yeah. Well, are you guys ready to have a little bit of fun? Okay, I think we were just critiquing the media, so I think it's time for us to transition to going easy on the media for a little bit as we talk about this. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg has had, I think it's fair to say, a difficult run of things. He's in charge of transportation, and across pretty much all the different areas of transportation I can think of, it's been rough. Gas prices have made driving hard. The planes haven't worked in like 2 years, and train travel, especially freight travel, has been to face some obstacles in terms of the trains not being on the tracks where they should be. So if you have an opportunity to talk to Pete Buttigieg, I can't think of a more interesting member of the Biden cabinet to speak to. And Wired actually just recently had an opportunity to talk to Pete Buttigieg. There are any number of interesting questions to ask him, but you'll have to wait for the next interview, I suppose, for that, because instead we got this. And I love this article because there's nothing I enjoy more on the internet than really not being sure if something is satire or not. Now, I come out of all of my research, I have found no evidence that this is satirical. It's being presented as 100% honest, and yet there is something inside of me that does not want to accept that. Let's see if you experience the same sensation. First of all, the name of the article is Pete Buttigieg Loves God, Beer, and His Electric Mustang.
Come on, you guys are a joke. A hilarious joke. I thought it was parody, John. I really did.
Yeah.
Like you did.
Look, the sentence below it is maybe even more embarrassing, which is why I think they made the font smaller. Sure, the US Secretary of Transportation has thoughts on building bridges, but infrastructure occupies just a sliver of his voluminous mind. You're not legally allowed to say that the person that you're interviewing that's a member of like the government has a voluminous mind. Apparently you are. I guess freedom of speech. Elon Musk did bring it back. Anyway, I want to read the first 2 paragraphs of the article, because if I don't read every word, there's no way that you're gonna believe that this is actually what it said. And again, could be satire, but I've seen no proof of it. The Curious Mind of Pete Buttigieg, my favorite movie after all, holds much of its functionality in reserve, even as he discusses railroads and airlines, down to the pointillist data that is his current stock in trade. The US Secretary of Transportation comes off like a Mensa black card holder who might have a secret go habit, or a 3-second Rubik's Cube solution, or a knack for supplying, off the top of his head, the day of the week for a random date in 1404, along with a non-condescending history of the Julian and Gregorian calendars. That can't be an actual paragraph that a person wrote that went through editors that was not intended to satirize modern media. That has to be what's behind this. Let's dig deeper. As Secretary Buttigieg and I talked in his under-furnished corner office one afternoon in early spring, I slowly became aware that his cabinet job requires only a modest portion of his cognitive powers.
Jesus.
Other mental facilities, no kidding, are apportioned to the Iliad, Puritan historiography, and Nosgård Spring, though not in the original Norwegian, slacker. Fortunately, he was willing to devote yet another apse in his cathedral mind to making his ideas about 3 mighty themes: neoliberalism, masculinity, and Christianity intelligible to me. Oh, thank God he was able to finally get through. By the way, it could be satire because there's no doubt that this writer is obviously very intelligent. I have always prided myself on my vocabulary, and there's like 3 or 4 words there, I don't even know what they mean. So clearly the writer's an intelligent person, but those, like I have written anniversary cards to my wife. I wrote my vows. I have written things that are designed to demonstrate the deep connection I have to another person that is deeply complimentary and supportive. And I have never written anything of my wife that is as supportive of a person as this writer just did for the person that they're supposed to be having a critical interview with.
No, guys, you got to be thinking at this point. No, really, it's 50-50, right? Whether it's satire or not. Swear to God, it is not at all satire. You read the whole thing, it's super earnest. and they're actually calling Buttigieg's mind a cathedral mind, okay? And guys, I went to the same schools as Buttigieg. So not the exact same schools, but went to, here, I'm gonna force to say it, I went to Wharton, the top business school, Columbia Law School, et cetera. And I know guys who literally were in the same class as Buttigieg, okay? These are party tricks that he's doing. It's not actual intelligence. I'm not saying Buttigieg is dumb.
People say he's smart. Everybody seems to agree he's smart.
He's perfectly intelligent. But the idea that he's some sort of beautiful mind genius that you can't understand because he's so busy reading Faustian, whatever. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? It's party tricks.
Nosgord is acclaimed.
Okay. So look, here's what I used to do to give you a sense of what like cheesy guys like me did in school, okay? That's why I can see his party tricks from a mile away, because this is the kind of crap I used to play when I was a kid, okay? You read the first chapter of the book, you read the last chapter of the book, then you read 3 very specific details in the middle, okay? Then when you go to write an essay or talk to a reporter, you mention 3 very specific detailed points, and they go, oh, he has such command of the material, what a cathedral mind. It works on teachers just as well as it works on reporters. It's all a trick, okay? So, and why are they doing this marketing job for Pete Buttigieg? That's the more interesting question. These stories come out when someone's about to run for office. This story is out right now because they're worried about Joe Biden. And they think they might have to send in Pete Buttigieg. And that is why mainstream media has been unleashed to go back to filleting him. That's what happened the last time in 2020. Everybody was all over him. Oh, the greatest. Did you know he once learned Norwegian just to read a book? How do you not see that that's like? To be fair, I didn't see it in the beginning either. And I've hated myself for not realizing that in day 1, minute 1. You learn Norwegian just to read a book, you liar. A Norwegian reporter asked him something in Norwegian. He's like, what? He doesn't know Norwegian, okay? These guys, come on guys. In the middle of this article, they talk about masculinity. And he's like, well, masculinity is a new definition, et cetera. On the one hand, I'm gay and I like rearing the children, et cetera. And he says, so that's part of the new masculinity potentially. I'm like, okay, great, I agree with that, totally, right? And he's like, on the other hand, I've got the traditional things like I like drinking beers and working out with weights and splitting wood. I was like, splitting wood? Splitting wood. You're going out with an axe in Washington, D.C. and splitting wood in the backyard for why? You're the transportation secretary. This is such an obvious lie. If I'm the reporter, he's like, I was out there just this afternoon splitting wood with my axe. Like, really? Really? Can I see your axe? Can I see the wood you split? Because I think you're monumentally full of crap. Instead, Wired magazine's like, a brilliant cathedral mind. If Biden doesn't run, he should definitely be him and not a progressive. Oh wait, did I say that out loud? Okay, no you didn't. This is pure propaganda disguised as journalism, which to be fair, is almost the entirety of mainstream media. Max.
McKinsey's secret. I can't believe you said that on the air. You showed people how to read a book like a Harvard student. You front cover, back cover, and a couple points in the middle. And you're right. I mean, the transportation secretary proving to have a little bit more tough time managing this than he thought it would be at McKinsey. And part of the reason that he gets this glowing press is because one of the open secrets of DC is he spends a lot of his day working with press, having lunch with reporters, managing his brand. And I would love to talk to Pete Buttigieg and explore his cathedral mind, but I can't because the plane from LaGuardia keeps getting canceled because the transportation secretary isn't working.
Yeah, I'm gonna read you guys one more example because look, Buttigieg, the reporter could, lengthy interview, could have asked him about all of his failings. Hey Pete, the planes don't seem to work. You're the transportation secretary. Hey Pete, there's like a mushroom cloud over Ohio. You're the transportation secretary, right? Instead, super vague general questions, which Buttigieg responded to with word salad as he always does, And then the reporter was like, oh, so brilliant, okay? So let me give you an example. And this, every paragraph, every question has this. But this is just a random one, not even a particularly good one. Climate change, here's what Buttigieg said. The lived reality of the younger generations is that they are experiencing climate issues, not as a theoretical possibility, but as a clear and present danger. These are generations that have experienced the reality that disparities, including racial disparities, left alone will only compound. They won't cure of their own gravitational tendency. Yeah, but what did you just say? Did you propose a policy? No, there's not any policy in the whole interview. No policy at all, at all, at all. It's just these word salad is the climate change with the gravitational tendency of the younger people, and that's why we're gonna do nothing.
Yeah.
And you thought that was a cathedral mind.
Maybe like a small rural church. Something like that.
Not to take away from the cathedral mind, but if you say something is a lived reality, you don't also need to add that it's not theoretical. That's what lived reality means.
Definitional, yeah. Yeah, I agree with most of what he said there. That does not mean that if he, like, God forbid, becomes president, that he's gonna do literally anything about it. Again,
no, that's my point. Like, there was nothing wrong with what he said. It was just gobbledygook. Like, it didn't propose any policy. It just made it sound like, oh, a gravitational tendency has not been met. Now I'm confused as to what we're gonna do.
Gravity,
I got news for you. You're gonna do nothing. That's what you're gonna do. But let's go to the levers reporting. So real quick, what I wanted to say is, if you cared about actual reporting, the independent progressive outlets like the Lever are doing amazing work, okay? Because they did an article about Buttigieg, and not because it's about Buttigieg, but because, oh my God, they're about to approve this rail that goes through land right next to the Colorado River that could, if there's a spill, which there almost certainly will be, could infect that water that serves millions of Americans. There's absolutely no reason to approve it, and Biden and Buttigieg are going to approve it. Why? Because it's a private equity company that has bought this rail, and they're demanding $80 million in public money. Why? Why would I give you money to make my profit?
Well, obviously as compensation for their great experience in building these sorts of railroads, as you will find out. So here's the details from the Lever. You can look at the Lever for their full reporting, but they say in the parched Southwest, 1 in 8 Americans rely on a single drought-stressed river that carries snowmelt from Rocky Mountain peaks down to desert communities. But instead of strengthening protections for that crucial water supply, the Biden administration has quietly laid the groundwork for a financial firm full of former government officials to use it as a route for oil trains amid heightened concerns about derailments. The Utah project, which already received federal permitting approval, is audacious. It aims to run trains full of petroleum from northeast Utah's Uinta Basin along the banks of the Colorado River as it winds through treacherous canyons prone to rock slides and mudslides. So difficult route, basically, is what they're sketching out. This would be tough for anyone, any firm. Unfortunately for us, this is not just any firm. This is a firm that has never successfully developed a major infrastructure project, though it says it has, quote, leveraged a proprietary set of relationships that its executives built during their time in government, which is good because if I had time for a follow-up question, it would have been, have you leveraged a proprietary set of relationships? So check that off, they have. And so the project's developers are planning to ask Buttigieg to approve private activity bonds subsidized by $80 million per year in federal tax breaks to finance the railroad's construction. The Center for Biological Diversity has calculated that the bonds, which would be offered at a 6% interest rate compared to the typical corporate bond rate of 10%, would cost US taxpayers $80 million annually for the 40-year term of the bond. So look, I can't calculate how much that is. I don't have a cathedral mind, but it's a lot of money.
Yeah, so they're gonna give a gift, an $80 million gift paid for by us, the taxpayers, to their donors. Their donors are filled to the rim with private equity guys. Pete Buttigieg's entire career is based on serving private equity and his donors. Has mainstream media mentioned Pete Buttigieg's donors once? Not to my knowledge. Okay, they're too busy complimenting him on his wood splitting and his Mustang that he drives around, but not for political purposes. Okay, he just happened to get a Mustang that happens to be American made and look kind of cool and tough.
It's electric.
And it's electric. It's, oh, what a,
it is cool.
Perfect combination, cool. But not for political purposes. Julia Rock, who wrote the Lever piece, an actual journalist. Hey, they're gonna approve that thing, it's gonna spill into the water, and they're gonna make us pay for it. And Buttigieg is totally in favor. he's actually making things worse and not better. That's real journalism, not, oh my God, have you taken time out from reading all of the work of Camus to do just 10% of your time for the Department of Transportation? Because that's all you need. That's all you need. Jesus, mainstream media reporters humiliate themselves on a daily basis.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, Max?
And quite frankly, I think the description of the project undersells it. This is the most American project of all time. Really, you have an existing railroad that just needs some repair to be less dangerous, but they're not gonna do that. What they're gonna do is build a whole new separate track next to it, get through perilous ground at huge expense. And the only real beneficiaries here are some of the companies Pete Buttigieg worked for.
Yeah, and look, I'll close with this. If you were going to have a firm that was going to do this sort of project, you'd want one with a lot of experience. But since we don't, I'd like to offer a tip. If it is gonna go through an area with like really thick forest, I know someone who could help you get through there.
Oh yeah, we got a wood splitting expert.
Anyway.
The Department of Transportation is a tough guy. And remember, everybody, when he runs, much better than every progressive who cannot win.
How do you say timber in Norwegian? I don't know, and neither does he. Anyway, with that said, we have one more awesome story to close out the hour, so we'll be right back.
I'm working up to what I want to be able to do to learn it more is I want to read Harry Potter in Spanish.
What? Are you mental? I think it's weird. Dweeb.
Nerd. Part mocks me.
That's what I do!
So many people written in. I'm gonna do the best I can. Let's go back to our members. Salty T says, articles like that in elitist languages where the Democratic Party loses middle America. They don't want to know you graduated an Ivy League school, but that you know the issues matter to them and have what it takes to get anything done. That is why Fetterman got them to listen to him, and voting even when he had a stroke, they knew that that guy would back up, get back up and have theirs. That's exactly right. But Pete Buttigieg is, you know how they talk about how he has knows six different languages or whatever? The main language that he knows is donorese, okay? So he knows, why does he speak like that when it doesn't actually appeal to any voters? He speaks like that because he knows it appeals to the two sets of folks that he needs most, donors and reporters, okay? A lot of them went to the same schools, and when they hear word salads like Pete Buttigieg's, they fall madly in love. I'm sorry, but I've seen it in person. I've seen people that are from those schools be like, have you seen what Buttigieg is saying? I'm like, no, have you seen what Buttigieg is saying? He's not saying, he hasn't said one word about policy. And they're like, oh, he's so smart. Oh, I love him. I'm gonna give him all my money. Okay, and they'll do it again. They'll do it again. And so that's why he's doing it. He's not a fool. That's a cash register. Every time he uses an SAT word, he's thinking in his mind, cha-ching.
By the way, everyone has to look up. Jordan posted a photoshopped version as if Wired had interviewed him, and it's hilarious. It's on his Twitter.
Oh, that's really funny, Jordan Yule. Boomer Dragon Cat says, I appreciate your thoughts and stance on Buttigieg, but I reiterate that I think he might be beneficial to our progressive message. I think we could work with him, just a feeling. I love you, but that is not at all correct. He would immediately, look, it's not an open question. He's the transportation secretary right now. He hasn't done one thing to help us. All he's ever done is help donors, even as they're creating mushroom clouds and everybody's furious there. Like, nope, protecting the donors 100%. If you make the mistake of trusting Pete Buttigieg, he will definitely betray you and help the donors exclusively. That's what that machine was built for, okay? He's not remotely progressive. Everything about him is a lie. And by the way, a very stable psychologist says you don't need to go to Harvard to learn that trick. Just high school honors English class. I agree with that as well. All right, we'll be back. Back on TYT, Cenk, John, Max with you guys. Also Larry Lee Russell, Brittany Therian, and Kyle Marks. They're all American heroes who just joined by hitting the join button below the video on YouTube. You guys can do likewise at tyt.com/join. And I also want to thank D-Get Shrifty, who gifted 20 subs on Twitch. That's amazing. You're awesome, and we appreciate you. By the way, we also appreciate our moderators on all these platforms, including on YouTube. They're doing great work. Thank you for looking out for us.
Thank you all.
John.
Yes, I was gonna say have a little bit of fun, but it is what it is. But let's talk either way. A man in Severn, Maryland has decided to take a stand and protest against some pretty minor gun control by hanging out at an elementary school bus stop with an AK-47. He's identified himself as Jaden McAdory. You can see photographs of him with the gun there. According to parents, at least, it appears that this has been going on for a few weeks. And when interviewed, he says that he's doing it to protest the recent gun control measures Governor Wes Moore signed into law. So we're gonna give you the details of what the bill actually is and then how he explains what he's doing. So this was signed Tuesday, May 16th. It's the Gun Safety Act of 2023. Moore said that it will help keep our communities safe from gun crime and help get guns off our streets. It prohibits a person from knowingly wearing, carrying, or transporting a firearm in certain locations, including schools. So look, across the wide spectrum of all possible gun control, from like a little bit of training or disclosure to complete banning of all guns, this is very much on the minor part of the spectrum, but he's protesting against that. He says, guns can be safe if they're controlled by the right person. I really wasn't coming out here for the kids. I was coming out here to show people that this is legal. But of course, the kids are scared. The parents obviously are very worried about what this represents. One parent, Jamie Sparrow, says, I feel like if we don't do something about it now, then we'll be talking again and it'll be too late at that point. I think that lives could be lost or people could be harmed. Sparrow said McAdory made a concerning comment when he walked by him and his family recently, saying, you guys are looking at me like a bunch of scared bowling pins. Wow, I guess you're the bowling ball if we're the bowling pins. Anyway, he says, I really want people to understand I mean no harm to no one. I'm actually deterrent away from the crime we always have here. So he's been talked to many times and he keeps saying, this isn't about the kids. I'm not trying to hurt anyone. But obviously, a person with an AK-47 is inherently threatening. I think most people can agree on that. What do you guys think?
They're asking for vigilante violence. So, look, I hope it doesn't happen. But I mean, I wouldn't let someone walk around with that kind of weapon near my kids. I just wouldn't let him. And so I don't know, what does that mean? I wouldn't let him. I don't know. I don't know what it means. I don't know what, when there's a parent that thinks like me, oh, I'm casually bringing an assault weapon right next to your 10-year-old daughter's head. No, you're not, okay? And so we're gonna have massive problems in this country. And I don't even understand the point he's making. Is he saying that this is great that I can terrorize your kids every morning? Is that supposed to be Like, or is he saying it's bad?
Well, he says that there is nothing inherently dangerous about a gun. Having a person with a gun makes the area safer. You know, people who like guns say that quite often. So I'm gonna demonstrate that me doing this is not hurting anyone. That's what it seems like he's doing.
Yeah, well, that's the dumbest point in America. And so, no, it's showing people how unsafe the guns are. You think, like, but that's the thing, man. There's like literally millions of mentally unstable people in this country that have access to assault weapons like that. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna show you how safe these guns are by having them right next to your kid's head. No, you're not. No, you're not. This is gonna get really stupid and ugly soon. And I'm super worried about it. But there is one thing that he is proving. Our gun laws are mental. Mental. We allow this near our kids? We all should have our brains examined for allowing these corrupt politicians to ruin our lives. Max.
Well, this guy hasn't thought his own ideas out to the end of his first sentence. I mean, he says he's standing there with a gun because a person with a gun makes a community safer, but he's there because there's so much gun violence. I mean, if he just listened to his own second sentence, he'd realize it makes no sense. But this is just another example of Republicans who talk about the importance of traditional society, who are some of society's most antisocial actors. I mean, just on a basic human level, you should see it's making people uncomfortable, that you're either gonna hurt someone or yourself unintentionally, and that this is a recipe for a problem. But he loves the attention, and that's what matters the most here.
Yeah, or he just strongly believes it, and like you can protest. Do you have to have the gun? You could have a sign that says you'd be safer if I have an AK-47. That at least can't go off and kill someone. I don't know anything about this guy's politics or anything like that. But what I do know is that pretty much everyone who owns a gun thinks that they're a responsible gun owner. Because you occupy your own body. Every other body, you have to try to come up with how they're thinking. And it's easy to assume that they're gonna have faults or make mistakes or whatever. But we always assume that we know what we're doing. And yet guns go off accidentally. Guns get stolen. Things happen, they happen all the time. And they happen to people with guns, and every single one of those people think that they're a responsible person with guns. I have no doubt that he thinks that he is an incredibly responsible person with a gun. And maybe he's more responsible than most, but this is still inherently threatening. Thankfully, he has proven that he can be reasoned with. He had an agreement with school district officials that he's no longer gonna protest in public during school pickup and drop off times. So when the kids are actually there at the spots or getting dropped off, he's not gonna do it anymore. I'm sure that'll help ease the frame of mind of the parents a little bit. And cops are saying that they're staying in the area. He's fully legally able to do this, but they're in the area to try to make people feel better. It doesn't seem like the best way to push your message to me.
Look, if he was trying to make the opposite point that, hey, obviously this is not safe. Are you kidding me? I have an AK-47 right next to your kids. This is the least safe thing in the world. I would still be against making the point in this way because it is unsafe and it is next to the kids. Guys, just think about this. All he has to do before they talked him out of going there in the morning and the afternoon, all he would have to do is raise the gun and start firing, and he'd kill dozens of those kids. But in America, him walking around those kids with that weapon of war is perfectly legal. Do you understand, if you live in America, just to John's point about how we all occupy our own headspace, in America, we think that's normal. Do you understand, if you live in America, that the rest of the world thinks we are lunatics? Like, no one thinks that's normal in the rest of the world. The rest of humanity thinks we've lost our minds and we don't even care about our kids' lives anymore. What kind of sick people live in America? Now it's no longer theoretical or anything. I have now heard many people, and you see, and our members write in all the time, people saying, oh, canceling trips to America. No, America is like one of the most violent places in the world. You'd be nuts to go visit America. I'm gonna go to America and somebody's gonna murder me with an assault weapon. They have a massacre. We literally average more than one massacre a day in America. And so we've become, like, Afghanistan's looking safe compared to America, and it's not hyperbole. So under no circumstances does this make sense, even if he was trying to make the opposite point of what he's making. But there's nothing we could do about it, because even, by the way, over 60% of Americans want to ban assault weapons. But it's not like we live in a democracy. Every Republican says, no, I take money from the NRA, I take money from gun manufacturers, and that those bribes are worth way more than your kids, and we don't vote them out of office. That's amazing. And that's why you have this daily terrorism of us and our kids being terrorized by people who own weapons like this. And guys, as a last point to what John was saying, the gun owners I happen to know, half of them are very, very responsible. They really are. They put away their guns, super safe about it, etc. The other half are jackasses, okay? You think every gun owner is super responsible? Have you met human beings? No, we've covered 1,000 stories. He left his gun right next to his kid. The kid picked it up, blew him away. Kid picked it up, blew himself away. Kid picked it up, blew his sister away, right? Thousands of those stories, right? Because people are human and half of them are not that responsible. And so the idea that these guns are safe is statistically incorrect, factually incorrect. But yet, oh my God, I love the freedom of having this toy. This toy murders your kids, but whatever, I love toys, plus money. Welcome to America. Soon we'll have no tourism left. Who the hell would come here?
Yeah. All right. I just wonder why this guy wasn't at work. I mean, I'm sure that the double cheeseburger brigade is missing their top agent.
Jesus. All right, guys, everybody check out Max on Rebel Headquarters. Everybody check out John on Damage Report. We got to go. We got an amazing second hour coming for you guys, so stay right here.
Our system is inherently rigged against the will of the people.
They have 50% of the vote, and in a democracy, they should have 50% of the seats.
But if you live in an insanely gerrymandered district, your vote functionally doesn't matter.
We drew the map in a way that even though we get 50% of the vote, we're gonna get 13 out of the 18 seats.
You don't actually have the ability to translate the will of the voters in your area into actual government policy.
They should not be allowed to gerrymander these districts. We should actually have a democracy.
Been honest with him, like, yeah, I was upset with you and I should have done it, but instead I was like, I'm just trying to protect my engagement ring.
At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor, or concern for whose toes we might step on, or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
Indisputable has been named the fastest growing news TV show in the United States of America, compared to all shows on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and roughly 30 others. What do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable. Donald Trump radicalized citizens. He's the chief terrorist. Republicans still want you to think that critical race theory is the greatest evil that can happen in K-12 education. It's not even taught. I guarantee you this, David. If he would have taken a knee during the national anthem to bring awareness to the need for more money for cancer research in America, he would not have had that response. It was the fact that he took a knee for black folk and brown folk. You rather pick the voters because you're scared of the voters picking the politicians. It frightens you. But we coming. When you are in a privileged position, equality looks like oppression to you. The Karenicity runs deep in this one. We provide a mirror. a mirror for reflection and a mirror for correction.
So what if I have 35? Don't hit me. Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
So let's put up the graphic of this Karen in peak performance. Boom. They want anarchy so they can start creating their own rules.
Can you share with me some examples?
When they were running around during the terrorist attack on January 6th saying, hang Mike Pence. So those are the people I'm talking about. That's a problem, correct? You work for Mike Pence, stand up for the guy. Do not allow the ideology of politics to evaporate the humanity that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, so I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reformed in this country, so I won't stop. And you won't stop either.
I have not done my job since I've gotten here. I can chew and walk gum at the same time.
Drop it. All right, Power Panel, Cenk Uygur, Adrian Lawrence, and RM Brown, host of the RM Brown Show. Welcome, RM. How are you, brother?
Good, how you doing? Thanks for having me, appreciate it.
No problem, good to have you. All right, we've got a lot of amazing stories here I can't wait to get to. So Adrian, take it away.
All right, let's go ahead and get it. Watch this.
Somebody tell the Democrats you came and talked to this committee because you're a whistleblower. Isn't that right, Mr. Levitt?
Yes, sir.
That's exactly how it works.
May I take a moment to address this idea that these aren't whistleblowers?
Sure.
The law.
You need to educate the members on the other side of the dais here.
I don't need educating. The way that the law.
Yeah, yesterday was kind of a doozy for Jim Jordan as he was mocked for the conspiracy theories surrounding FBI abuses. But of course, today, all of a sudden, now the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court opinion was released. That suggests that the agency's antics may go a little bit further than the right-wing members of Congress have claimed. This per the Washington Post. The FBI has misused a powerful digital surveillance tool more than 278,000 times, including against crime victims, January 6 riot suspects, people arrested at protest after the police killing of George Floyd in 2020, and in one case, 19,000 donors to a congressional candidate, according to a newly unsealed court document. And that is the Foreign Intelligence Court, which oversees Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, better known as FISA. Well, the Section 02 database is a vast trove of electronic communications and other information that can be searched by the National Security Agency and by the FBI. The FBI is authorized to search the database only when agents have a reason to believe that such a search will produce information relevant to foreign intelligence purposes or evidence of crimes. But of course, we've known for quite some time that the agents have not necessarily respected those parameters. But of course, we know now it's a bit more egregious because they've been abusing access really to the displeasure of many, including FISA Judge Rudolph Contreras. For example, around June 2020, an FBI analyst conducted 656 queries of FISA information, apparently, because the Bureau was considering whether to use people as informants and wanted to check for any derogatory information, the court filing says. The FBI did not have any reason to believe that agents would find such information, officials said. After the January 6, 2021 riot at the US Capitol, an FBI employee ran batches of inquiries that amounted to 23,132 separate queries of presumed Americans to find evidence of possible foreign influence, although the analyst conducting the queries had no indications of foreign influence related to the query term used. Officials also found a long pattern between 2016 and 2020 in which the FBI conducted FISA searches about individuals listed in police homicide reports, including victims, next of kin, witnesses, and suspects, according to the court opinion. The Justice Department found that these searches violated the rules because there was no reasonable basis to expect they would return foreign intelligence or evidence of a crime. Now, when confronted with these misuses, well, the FBI said that it fixed the issue, that really this was just a misunderstanding between employees and DOJ lawyers about how to properly use that database. It sounds like quite a misunderstanding, Cenk.
Yeah, so there's a couple of elements to the story. First is that the right-wingers have found out that the FBI sometimes abuses its power. Welcome to the rest of America. It's nice to have you here. They feel like special victims. They're like, did you know that the January 6th guy, some of them were spied in on like this through the FISA warrants? Yeah, so was Black Lives Matter. Yeah, that's something they should spy in on them, but not us, not ever us. And so for the first time in American history, the FBI is treating some right-wing groups as suspects. In other words, how they've treated the rest of us for all of time. But the right wing's not used to it. They're used to having law enforcement 100% on their side. No one ever looks into anything that they do. So they've caught tremendous feelings over it. And they think that they're special victims. They're like, FBI is targeting conservatives. But no, but most of the people they targeted were not conservatives. For the first time ever, they included some small radical conservatives on the list. And you guys think that it's like, oh my God, this is the most special victimization of all time. No, it isn't. So, but now we get to the second part of the story, which is really interesting. So this FISA court abuses have been happening for over 20 years now. And we told you about them during the Bush administration, Obama administration, Trump administration, and Biden administration. But when the left says things that are true and says we should fix it, no one ever does anything, ever. Because the Democrats hate their own base and they would never help us. They liked that we were getting spied in on. But the minute the Republicans say, oh my God, now 5% of the people is being spied in on is us, this is totally unacceptable. Republican politicians are now saying, oh my God, these FISA warrants are outrageous. Republican politicians love these FISA warrants. They loved them for the last 20 years. They're the main guys who pushed for them, and they didn't mind their abuses at all. All of a sudden, two rando right-wingers get looked into. They're like, oh, we got to get rid of the FISA warrants. In a sense, though, I respect that. Our politicians would never do anything for us, the Democratic voters, or the American people at large. So, hey, right wing, congrats. I'm glad you finally figured it out 20 years too late. But yes, the FBI abuses FISA warrants all the time. RM.
Yeah, no, this is, I mean, I think it's like probably taught in high schools now that what the FBI was doing in the 60s, right? The Hoover FBI. This is kind of what the FBI does, but it's kind of funny. Well, look, they're a little late to the party, but better late than never, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And they're very much as a party, it seems, as far as Jim Jordan goes with his antics just the other day. Because even though they're finally getting to the party, it's still like they don't know how to party. It seems like it's very much a problem in their regard. But the Washington Post did give a little credence to Jim Jordan. He said, while House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan has argued that the FBI has mistreated conservatives and applied a liberal bent to its investigations, the example cited in Contreras' opinion suggests that the Bureau was multifaceted in its failure to live up to the legal standards of the courts and the Justice Department. But notwithstanding this realization, it again doesn't appear that Jordan is really convincing in terms of having credible witnesses, at least, to show that this is a problem in terms of FISA. Here's a witness from yesterday's hearing featuring former FBI agents who somehow found God after being stripped of their clearances.
If one of your really good friends, your former colleagues, came to you and said, I have this thing that is being covered up, and I think the American people need to know about it, what advice would you give them?
I would tell them first to pray about it, long and hard. And I would tell them I could take it to Congress for them, or I could put them in touch with Congress, but I would advise them not to do it.
So you would legitimately try to protect one of your colleagues from doing what you have done?
Absolutely.
And how do you think that solves being able to shine light on corruption, weaponization, any kind of misconduct that exists with the American people?
It doesn't solve it, but the FBI will crush you. This government will crush you and your family if you try to expose the truth about things that they are doing that are wrong. And we are all examples of that.
I can't think of a more sobering way to end a hearing. I yield back.
Well, if that hearing had been somewhat effective and less of a clown show, perhaps we'd be a little bit more maybe inching toward actually getting some FISA enforcement action, which would be great. But it was not any good. It was an absolute failure. This per MSNBC. If the proceedings were intended to embarrass the Bureau, they backfired, painting the FBI's accusers and their allies in an unflattering light. Jordan hid transcripts from committee members, downplayed the fact that some of the witnesses had been paid by a member of Donald Trump's team, and pretended his so-called whistleblowers don't have serious credibility problems. Cenk, how did it sit with you?
Okay, so now the problem is that the Republicans are going to get, like, people who watch MSNBC, read the New York Times, to defend FISA warrants and abusing FISA warrants. Because the Republicans bring on these conspiracy theorist clowns, these deranged sock puppets, and they come in and I mean, I watched some of the testimony and I'm like, no, they actually do abuse FISA warrants. That's real. Why did you bring on lunatics to talk about it? Because now mainstream media viewers and readers are gonna look at it and go, oh, I guess the people who think that FISA warrants get abused are all lunatics like these witnesses that the Republicans brought. And all the Republican congressmen are gigantic liars, and they can't be trusted at all. So now they're the defenders of civil liberties. And so I'm worried that they're gonna get mainstream Democrats to attack civil liberties because the Republicans are on the other side. This is, why can't we get one sane person to represent us? RM, last thoughts.
No, I have no idea why not, but I haven't watched any of that hearing yet. But that's exactly what I predicted it to be. Just something that could be a very serious issue that deserves a lot of focus and respect, but it's not going to get it with these guys, I don't think.
Yeah, or you know what? One super last thought here, guys. So some of the guys that were involved in January 6th were also looked into with abuse of the FISA warrant. So how could it be an abuse? It could easily be an abuse because in some cases it might make perfect sense. Hey, was there foreign interference that caused some of the people to go and attack the Capitol, right? There might be our foreign adversaries that want to attack our Capitol and egg people on to do it. But you have to have evidence of that, of some sort, before you ask for a warrant to look at all of their private information. It's an enormous invasion of privacy. So this is not for people who are already going to court and we think they already did it, etc. They're getting evidence on all of their private information on all of these guys without evidence that there was a foreign government interfering. So that's also wrong, even though it was targeted at the January 6th guys who I don't like at all and I think we're completely wrong. See, you could actually be in favor of civil liberties, whether it's to a left winger or right winger or just an average American. We should always be honest and principled about where we stand. I don't want any FISA warrant abuse. I don't think it should exist in the first place because they always abuse it. Every time they say they're not going to abuse it, they break a new record in abusing it. I don't want them to have the right to invade our privacy without actually knowing that there's any chance that we committed a crime. So they should get rid of the whole thing. But now I don't know if that's become more likely or less likely because of the clown show that the Republicans put on in Congress. All right, we got to take a break. So when we come back, there's a story in this hour that has actually enraged me more than all the ones we just talked about. Okay, believe it or not, for what someone or two people got fired for is just about as outrageous as you'll ever hear. All right, we'll come right back. back on TYT. I can't help but read the critical comments first. So I don't have this person's name, but it's a YouTube member. This nihilistic view of everything from Cenk is getting a bit much. Kind of feels like the Fox News model. Oh my God, I wish, look, not I wish. There were times, if you watch Young Turks, that we had tons of hope and we weren't not at all, quote unquote, nihilistic. And I'm not nihilistic now. I'm one of the most optimistic guys you'll ever see. Bernie could have won in 2016. He could have won in 2020. He was an actual honest person who wanted to do good in the world. Could he have gotten everything done? I don't know, and it would have been a real challenge, but at least he was gonna try. And when the Just Democrats first started, oh my God, we had tremendous hope, right? So it's not to say that nothing good could ever happen, absolutely not. In fact, I hate to keep saying it, but if you read my book, chapter 6 is all about incredible hope for the future. And it's not just hope, it's real. The voters are actually totally coming to our side. In fact, in a lot of ways, they've always been on our side. So I'm the last person to be a nihilist, but I have to be honest with you. The Republicans and Democrats do not have your best interests in mind. Just believing in one of the teams maybe it makes you feel better, but it just isn't true. So this is a news program. I've got to tell you things that are true, and I've got to break the myths. And by the way, like, you see me attacking the mainstream media reporters all the time, right? But you also see me giving credit to independent reporters, progressive reporters that are doing brilliant reporting. And when we see good reporting in the New York Times or other places, we point that out too. I don't want you to lose faith at all. I want the opposite. But we've got to direct our hope to the right things. If you just keep hoping against hope that Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg are gonna deliver for you, it's misplaced hope, and then you're gonna get even more frustrated. And then you're gonna get even more, and then the nihilists will actually win. We've got to direct it in the right way, and I hope to God we can get a candidate soon that will help us do that. But right now, other than Marianne Williamson, who's wonderful and courageous and brave and to be commended, I don't see anything on of the current candidates at all, unfortunately. Crystal Sheets writes in about that Pete Buttigieg piece. Then we sniffed each other's farts, and Pete has notes of oak with a hint of orange blossoms. I wouldn't be surprised if she had actually written that. Robbie Anderson says, Pete Buttigieg is so milquetoast. Straw Hat Dragon just became a member and says, do these gun nuts miss the well-regulated militia aspect of the Second Amendment? How is it well-regulated to have some random dude near kids? Yeah, they do miss it. They miss it on purpose. It clearly says it in the Second Amendment that they pretend to cherish but have never read. And then all of a sudden they can't speak English. They're like, what does well-regulated mean? What is a militia? Yeah, none of these guys are in a militia, and none of it is about well-regulated. We'll be back. Back on TYT, Cenk, Adrian, and I am with you guys. Of course, you can check out Adrian's show Overruled on Rebel Headquarters, and I think you'll love it, as most folks do. So, Adrian, what's next?
All right, well, we got more for you. Here you go.
Jews scam, rape, and IMAG dump.
Yeah, that was the Air National Guardsman that's being accused of leaking government documents online, and also we've learned that he is obsessed with starting a race war. But now we've also learned that he was caught mishandling classified materials multiple times before he was arrested last month. That's right. These revelations, they've emerged now as the government is fighting to keep the 21-year-old Jack Teixeira in detention pending his prosecution. And we know this per the Wall Street Journal. In 3 memos dated September 15th, October 27th, and February 3rd, Massachusetts Air National Guard commanders expressed concern about Airman Jack Teixeira's handling of classified information and told him to cease and desist on deep dives that weren't related to his job. Now, each of these instances involved Teixeira accessing classified information and also taking notes, even though it was not related to his work. Now, here is how the Air Force handled things after catching him for the first time in September. 1 month later, a master sergeant learned that Teixeira was potentially ignoring a cease and desist on deep dives after he asked specific questions during an October 20th intelligence briefing. The unit offered Teixeira additional training on how to handle classified information, but he declined any cross-training opportunity at this time, according to the memo. And if you're not familiar with what exactly Teixeira leaked, well, here's a very brief rundown of it. So some of the documents, which US officials say are authentic, expose the extent of US eavesdropping on key allies, including South Korea, Israel, and Ukraine. Others reveal the degree to which the US has penetrated the Russian Ministry of Defense and the Russian mercenary organization Wagner Group, largely through intercepted communications and human sources, which could now be cut off or put in danger. And also, we had the good fortune to learn last week that chat logs from Teixeira's Discord really show that the man has quite the racist ideology and is quite dangerous. Yes, Teixeira used the term race war quite a few times, said a close friend who spent time with Teixeira in an online community on Discord. He did call himself racist multiple times, the friend said in an interview. I would say he was proud of it. But despite at least 3 of these red flags that his supervisors knew of and the obvious white nationalist type behavior on social media, well, Teixeira wasn't stopped. Rather, just they arrested him. And then in the aftermath, of course, that's when the Air Force took action. Watch this.
Based on our reporting here at CBS News, at least 2 of his immediate supervisors were suspended pending the outcome of this internal investigation. And I'm sure you remember that this intelligence wing had its mission removed for the time being. What these records show is that these internal security procedures did flag Teixeira, but a decision was made by his supervisors to let him stay in that position and retain the security clearance, which allowed him, according to prosecutors, to allegedly leak all of these documents online.
Yeah, so not only did they have notice, and they should have been on notice by way of all the public postings he had about his racist ways. Still, the government didn't do anything until in the aftermath. Cenk.
Because right-wingers are always treated with kid gloves, right? Like, oh my God, oh my. So I don't want to stop you. I mean, you sound like a super dangerous, unhinged guy who with access to national security secrets, but oh, I don't want to be accused of bias. Okay, so look, progressives leak information from the U.S. government, like Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden. What do we find out? They have perfect receipts on exactly how your government is lying to you, and by the way, spying in on you. That is super helpful. That is classic whistleblower, and is meant to help all of the American people. And it does. We're armed with that knowledge about how our government is betraying us. Right-winger leaks to start a race war. And then what do you leak? So Chelsea Manning leaks the Apache helicopter video, and it shows how we shot at first responders, how we shot at reporters, and we were absolutely callous about their lives, and no one was punished for it. It shows how we lied about how many civilians we killed in Iraq. These are super important things. Edward Snowden's leak shows that our government is spying in on innocent Americans. Whether you're left wing or right wing, all of that helps you. Not that your government then winds up reversing any of those actions. Both Republican and Democratic politicians go, no, we're going to keep doing all of those abuses, even though those guys revealed it. So this guy, what did he reveal? He revealed our sources inside the Russian Ministry of Defense. What are you doing? That doesn't help Americans at all. And that definitely endangers lives. And that blows spies in the one place we need them most. How did that help anybody? Oh no, but I got the government. And soon we're gonna kill all the Jews, blacks, the Muslims, name them, right? Look, brothers and sisters, this ain't it. RM.
Yeah, no, this story is so wild from the military's perspective because it's basically like the elevator pitch would be like, yeah, we recruited this clearly unstable 4chan child, basically a child, protected him when he was clearly doing things he wasn't supposed to do. Oh, and our secrets got out. Oh my God, who could have predicted that? You know what I mean? I mean, it's crazy. It's a crazy story, and I'm still shocked at like the more we learn by the story.
Unfortunately, the judge didn't see it as being such an innocent move by Teixeira, and they have opted to keep him housed in detention during his prosecution for the length of it, which is good. And one of the reasons that the judge cited was because he was concerned that maybe other countries would try to cuddle up to Teixeira while he is out on bail, especially knowing that he has data information accessible and also may have secrets that he has in his head. So he will be staying behind bars until his trial, which is a good thing. But as we move on to trials and tribulations, I can tell you that there is a group of sex workers who are very, very happy because after 15 grueling months of battling their employers, the dancers at Star Garden Topless Dive Bar just voted unanimously to join a union. That's right, they are unionizing. And their victory, it makes them the only unionized strip club in the country, which is quite amazing. Because almost a year ago, well, Perfect Union had interviewed the dancers to ask them why they wanted to be a union. And here's what they said. Oh,
I was fired for bringing up a safety concern about a customer. I saw red flags and I was concerned that things were accelerating in an alarming way that could lead to obsession. I saw red flags of like possessiveness.
When I brought up my concerns to the manager on duty that night, he mocked me to my face, telling me that I was going to be murdered by that customer and how I was going to be murdered by him.
It's a little bit more complicated in California with the passage of AB 5, which classifies strippers as employees instead of independent contractors. Because the strip club model was not built to support an employee relationship with the owners, a lot of clubs in California as a whole have made some really shady adjustments. Like, okay, well, we'll give you minimum wage, but we're going to take 50% of your lap dances now. Or we'll give you minimum wage, but you have to pay a flat rate of $200 now to come in and work. So they're essentially compensating themselves for having to pay you minimum wage, and dancers actually end up making less money.
But they have finally achieved their goal. And let's take a look at why it really took so long for the dancers to win their union. So we have this from NPR. From March to November 2022, the strippers and their supporters picketed weekly in front of Star Garden on the North Hollywood bar's busiest nights. The results of the November union election were shelved due to employer legal challenges. Star Garden claimed that most of the individuals in the union says are eligible to vote were never employees of Star Garden, but were lessees who should not be allowed to vote. The employers also filed for bankruptcy, a move that can avoid union contracts. But this Monday, Star Garden finally backed down. In a Tuesday press release, the union announced that lawyers representing the owners of the Star Garden Topless Dive Bar had withdrawn all election challenges and agreed to recognize the union. As part of the settlement with the union, Star Garden has agreed to exit the bankruptcy, and the club will reopen within 30 to 60 days of the bankruptcy dismissal, said Ann Runda, a lawyer representing Star Garden management. According to Actors Equity president Kate Schindel, this settlement also stipulates that no security guards who worked at Star Garden previously can work at Star Garden going forward. And so yesterday, the dancers voted 17-0, joining the Actors Equity Association. One dancer said this in response. This is not just a win for the dancers at this club, but the entire strip club industry. Strippers who want to unionize their workplaces and have voice in the way their clubs are run now have a clear path forward. Absolutely, and that's incredibly important. I had a number of friends in LA who were dancers, from Spearmint Rhino to all other places. And the thing is how you protect the girls is incredibly, incredibly important. And I even interviewed some of them for my book. And as it turned out, they felt that the best workplaces that they had ever been in were strip clubs because of security guards taking care of them, recognizing how vulnerable they can be in situations, especially if you have nudity and potential alcohol in the mix. And so knowing that these girls were in these vulnerable places without protection, and now they are gonna get to be able to play a role in it, makes me very happy. Cenk.
Yeah, this is a great development. And I know what old school folks are thinking, right? They're like, oh my God, they see the headline, they're like, oh, now even strip clubs are unionizing. And for the old school folks, that might seem weird or something. But think about it, guys, as Adrian was saying, where would you need protection the most? Do you think that the strip club management community is like the top of the line in helping their employees get to the best situation they could possibly be in? My guess is they are not the top of the line, right? And there's a lot of situations where those women need to be protected, both in a physical way, but also in a financial way. I thought one of the women in the video explained how they financially abuse them perfectly, and that's a place where a union makes a ton of sense. And so when you think about it that way, and just, if you're in that old school community and you're like, this is kind of interesting, different, I wouldn't have expected it. But when you think it through, you realize, that makes a ton of sense. So congrats to those women, great job in unionizing there. All right.
No, yeah, absolutely. Before the show, I was watching a bunch of interviews with these dancers and the stories that they tell about the dangerous situations that they could get into. They clearly need the management and security to pay more attention to them. But it's interesting because you were answering a chat earlier where somebody was asking about sort of like doomerism and focusing on these problems and stuff. But if you listen to these dancers in these interviews, they are facing harsh realities about their situation and their kind of exploitative situation, and they're facing it and they're dealing with it. So I think it's great. I mean, I think that's an example of looking at the facts and then dealing with it. And I think it's a very inspirational story.
I'm very much inspired, RM, by the fact that you watched these strippers interviews, but you didn't watch the congressional FBI hearings. Like, hey, bro, I'm just here for priorities, but I couldn't not make that point. But I also will point out that my girlfriends who work at strip clubs had said it was the safest environment because their managers protected them, knowing that they are the product, that there would be no money made without them. So what Star Garden has done has shown you that there are some people who own these bars who are willing just to neglect their product entirely. And those people are the ones who definitely need that union protection. And also, like Jake noted, with the old school mentality, the thing is they're actors, they're performers just the same. And so I give them nothing but love, especially since a lot of people come to LA to make it big and they have so many incredible dancing skills. So as far as I'm concerned, Atlanta can sit down. The strippers are second to none in LA, but that's all the love I got for that. But let me show you some quick pictures of what the dancers were doing on the picket line where they threw multiple themed nights. Yes, witches and wizards, very cool. And then they had like the babe tricks and pirate night. Oh yeah. That's how you do it. You get together, you fight. These are good things. And I think we have a break coming up. Is that right, Cenk?
Yep. But I do agree with RM. Look, there's good news, okay? And there's a lot more where that came from. Okay, but when we come back, one of the most outrageous stories I've read in a long time. We'll be right back and give that to you. Back on TYT. So first of all, don't forget our podcasting network. So if you listen to podcasts wherever you get your podcasts, get Young Turks, Indisputable, Damage Report, and so many of our other podcasts there. Second of all, don't forget our newsletter, the only progressive newsletter in the country, tyt.com/newsletter, or you could scan the QR code there. Remember, our membership for the entire network, that includes all the shows, the newsletter, everything, is just the lowest number is $4.99. So $4.99 a month, that's basically a cup of coffee at a non-unionized Starbucks per month, and gets you all that content, and you get to be part of getting out both the progressive message and just honest news reporting. But if you do want to upgrade to finance some of those $5 members that are barely at break even basically for us, that would be amazing, and you could upgrade through the same button on YouTube that you join through. So it says join, but you can upgrade through there as well. And you could upgrade on TYT .com as well too. Okay, so speaking of that, let me go to our members on tyt.com. Mickey C, the silver hair dragon says, LMAO, Jenk's naivete and positivism is probably the trait that annoys me the most about him. So I like that we've got a war between whether I'm unduly nihilistic or unduly optimistic. So that's an amusing war to have. It's not really a war, just a conversation. And Science Dragon says, Cenk, maybe bringing the lunatics was the point. They like the FISA warrants when those warrants serve their interests. Man, that would be some fourth dimensional chess. If the Republican politicians brought in a bunch of lunatics to complain about FISA warrants so they could keep FISA warrants, my hat's off to them if that was their strategy. But I honestly think the Republican politicians are not smart enough to come up with a strategy like that. Drunk Mom Dragon says, Adrienne is the queen of good segues. She nails it every time. I totally agreed with that. Here. Crystal Braden says, about the guy with the gun with the next to the school. Bet dude would sing a different tune when a good guy with a gun pops him because they think he's a bad guy with a gun. What a moron. So that's such a great point. In fact, Crystal, $100 Blue Apron gift card. Go to rewards@tyt.com to claim it. Because, yeah, how does anybody know that you are making a random political point when they see a guy with an assault weapon right next to the kids, next to a school? Somebody might shoot at you, you shoot at them, the kids die in the middle. It's just a disaster waiting to happen. I'm pissed I didn't make that point during the segment. Great job, Crystal. Textan says about the Buttigieg segment, Cathedral Mind, does that mean it smells musty, is completely empty most of the time, and has bats in the belfry? Hilarious point, excellent one. And I am out of time. Twitch Micro writes in on Twitch, did this writer owe Pete their dignity or what? Back on TYT, Cenk, Adrienne, and Nara. I'm with you guys. Adrienne, take it away.
All right, let's head to upstate New York, where the attack on inclusivity is costing people jobs. Well, at least 2 people who used to work at a Christian university there. Yeah, and they were fired for using pronouns. Mind you, neither of the 2 individuals are trans. They simply have gender neutral names and they thought it'd be professional and kind of wanted to be inclusive. Yeah, here's a picture of them from their New York Times interview. Yep, on the left there, Reagan Zelaya, and on the right, Shua Wilmot. And they say they're often misgendered due to their androgynous names. Completely and totally understandable. So despite the practical aspect of putting pronouns in their email subject line and the inclusivity of it all, well, their bosses at Houghton University, I believe I'm saying it correctly, they objected. This per the Times. Administrators at Houghton, which is affiliated with a conservative branch of the Methodist Church, asked Ms. Zelaya and Mr. Wilmot, 2 residence hall advisors, to remove the words she, her, and he, him from their email signatures, saying they violated a new policy. When they refused to do so, both employees were fired just weeks before the end of the semester. And to give you some insight into this Christian school and its principles, it seems that they're not necessarily as inclusive as Christ would have been. Houghton is affiliated with the Wesleyan Church, which teaches that gender confusion and dysphoria are ultimately the biological, psychological, social, and spiritual consequences of the human race's fallen condition. It views adult gender nonconformity as a violation of the sanctity of human life. Now, of course, the school tried to spin it in a way that they could save face when it became very much public knowledge and went viral. And they did this by trying to discredit their former employees' account of why they were fired. Michael Blankenship, a university spokesman, said in a statement that Houghton has never terminated an employment relationship based solely on the use of pronouns and staff email signatures. Over the past years, we've required anything extraneous be removed from email signatures, including scripture quotes. But of course, Ms. Zelaya, she kind of had the receipts here. Her termination letter, which she posted, says that she was fired not for just removing her pronouns, but also for criticizing the administration's request that she do so when she talked to the student paper. So all in all, as far as I'm concerned, they were fired for having pronouns in their email signature line. Now, the response from the university alum has been pretty loud. They've signed a petition with almost over 600 signatures in protest, really noting that the school has made this right-wing move lately, including closing the Multicultural Student Center, shuttering its environmental sustainability program, and they've also discredited or shunned the on-campus LGBTQ club. It really sounds like this university is going full MAGA, and unfortunately, they're losing good talent in the process. Cenk.
I thought the right wing was against cancel culture. But now you're going to fire people for using the correct pronouns. And by the way, they're not even LGBTQ. It wouldn't make it any better if they were, but you're firing people for using pronouns, period. Are we allowed to use any grammar? What else can we get fired for? Using commas? And these guys say, oh, we're for freedom. Are you? We're against cancel culture. Are you? Okay, look, when I first saw the headline, I was like, oh, somebody got fired for not using pronouns, I thought, right? And I'm like, oh, that's outrageous. I'm on the left, but you shouldn't fire someone for not listing all their pronouns in their email. And it turns out, no. They got fired for using pronouns, for using correct grammar, and for explaining to people that Shua is apparently a male name. I had no idea. They're like, how dare you? But get a load of that last piece of irony. So here's a guy saying, I'm a guy, and they go, fire him. What are we firing him for? It's insane. It's insane. But the right wing's like, no, that makes sense. It looks like maybe they're LGBTQ adjacent. Fire them just in case they're using correct grammar. Okay, look, if you're on that side, God help you, because that really, but yes, it was the administration that fired them. People in power, and tons of people apparently think it makes sense. I can't. It's beyond insane. All right.
That is a funny detail that they both have sort of uncommon names, which they could literally just be saying, "Hey, I have an uncommon name. Here's my pronouns." That's such a funny detail. But yeah, I don't know what the reasoning is. It's like pronouns are a gateway to satanic things? I don't know. But I was reading in the article too that that college is having not as many people are enrolling. They're having some problems with that, and I wonder why. It doesn't seem like maybe the funnest place to go to school. So I'm not shocked.
RM, to be fair, my parents warned me about this. So I remember telling my parents, "Hey, I'm going to go out with her," and they're like, "Oh, did you just use a pronoun? That's a gateway to being gay." I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that." Is it a gateway? Is that what pronouns are? I mean, it's how do you talk to the right wing? How do you talk to them? How do you make sense of this? Are we speaking the same language? Do you guys care about logic at all? Do you not see that this is insane? And Adrian, my reading of the story was that their president is like on a warpath to make them like super conservative, and so he's trying everything to make it like outrageously radical right, and that was part of the reason, or the main reason why he did this.
Yeah, no, it sounds right that they are trying to go for this big push. But if people are unenrolling and also people don't want to be affiliated, and you have alum who generally are donors passing on this, it's like, how smart is this for you for running business? Like, get out of here. It's completely and totally nonsensical as far as I'm concerned. The only benefit here is those two individuals with those gender neutral or androgynous names can now collect unemployment because they've been fired. But as far as the student body goes, I really feel bad for them. They might as well go to Liberty University. But I also do feel bad for those in Nebraska, because legislature pushed through today LB 574. And before the bill got pushed through, well, the opponents, they got real.
I'm asking you to love your family more than you hate mine. We don't need you here. We need you to vote no or present not voting on 574. Because, There's nothing else in this body that's affecting your family that way.
Yeah, that was independent Nebraska State Senator Megan Hunt, who had some strong words for her Republican colleagues as they tried to push through an anti-abortion and anti-trans legislation, and they were effective as of this afternoon. This act is Let Them Grow Act, but it really just attacks gender-affirming care, such as puberty blockers and hormone therapy for people under the age of 19. And they were able to go ahead and sneak in at the last minute a bill that bans abortions after 12 weeks as well. It's something that we're seeing across the country, as now I think Nebraska becomes the 20th state that has passed some kind of ban on restriction for gender-affirming health care for minors. And it just shows you that we're looking really down the pike of fascism, because it is coming and it's coming quick, and it is attacking women and sexually and gender marginalized groups. Cenk.
I thought that was a devastating point that she made, because so the Republican legislator is saying, hey, I really want to get to my grandkids' graduation, but you guys are doing a filibuster, and so because of your filibuster, I can't leave, and I really want to get past the filibuster so I can vote to make sure we discriminate against your kids who happen to be transgender. So the point that the progressive legislator is making is actually indisputable. She's saying, well, I want you to go to your kid's graduation. You can go right now, and then we wouldn't pass this bill hating transgender kids and discriminating against them. So you're saying discriminating against my kids is literally more important to your life than going to your own grandkids' graduation. That's very literally what you're saying. We're like, oh, no, I gotta stay here to make sure I pass this hate legislation. So that's why I'm sorry, I love you kids, but I don't love you as much as I hate them. That's literal, and it's actually kind of a devastating point. RM.
Yeah, as a parent, I really love my kids, but what I love more is making life harder for other people. So, if I have to miss a few recitals or baseball or soccer games to just make life harder for people that I will probably never even meet, I'm gonna do that, because that's how much I love my kids. I guess, yeah, I guess that's the deal there. So, yeah, I thought her reply to all that was really good too. So, yeah, what else can you say about that? It's craziness, and this all passed too, right?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
So
too bad.
Yeah, to RM's point, I never thought about it in reverse. What would be a bill that the Republicans might filibuster, but if I was a legislator, I stick around and miss my kid's graduation? Well, then I thought, wait, why would we pass any bills as progressives that discriminate against the right wing? I wouldn't want to do that. So, for example, let's say they propose a bill saying, you know what, you're not allowed to teach your kids fundamentalist religion. Now, I hate fundamentalist religion. I'm not in favor of it. It's not. I think it's a radical interpretation of religion, but I wouldn't pass that bill. It's up to you how you parent. Like, it's up to that lady we showed you in the video how she parents her child and what kind of treatment she wants to get that child, etc. But I wouldn't want to legislate the right wingers' rights away to parent their kids the way that they want them. But then if you said to me, now look, Cenk, do you hate these right wingers so much that you want to miss your daughter's graduation to make sure that you tell them how they can and can't treat their own kids? I'd be like, no, I'll see you guys later, right? But that, Adrian, that goes to the point of, we don't want to pass any bills that discriminate against them anyway, so we'd never be in that situation.
Nope, and I just don't understand why they don't seem to get it. But with their desire to control and to oppress and to make sure that no one else gets to live that whole life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness to the fullest, but continues to maintain an oppressed individual in our society. It's like they are so incredibly invested in this. It's to the point where it's not commonsensical. We're seeing Florida suffer financially now with their desire to push oppressive policies. And you would think that Nebraska and these other states would learn, but for some reason, they can't seem to exercise any common sense.
Yep, absolutely. Now, we got a bonus episode coming up for our members. And in that bonus episode, we're gonna talk about Don Trump Jr. has a new lifestyle magazine. You might wanna look into it, but I doubt it. It is really funny. TYT.com/join to become a member, or if you're on YouTube, hit the join button below, and we'll see you there in a minute.
Indisputable has been named the fastest growing news TV show in the United States of